What if you had a life goal, something you really wanted to do, but then you hit a massive roadblock? You think the dream is over? Well, here's a thought. If you think you can't do that thing, stay hopeful and keep going, because that's what Phillip Browne did. Phillip Browne loved to sing, and he was really good at it as well. But an ear infection meant that he lost all his hearing in his ear, and he was told that he would never sing again. So he trained to be a bus driver. He still harboured thoughts that he could sing though, and he still practiced. And then one day, a friend of his suggested he audition for a role in a London musical. He did, and he bagged one of the biggest roles in the West End. His message to you and mine is keep going. Stay hopeful. You might fail, but then if you succeed, you might see your name in lights, just like Phillip did. Hear Phillip's story on Life Changing with me, Dr. Sian Williams, on BBC Sounds. His name is Phillip Browne, and he's here. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in. Before we talk about where you ended up, let's start right at the beginning. So you're in a very busy household in Birmingham.
Yeah.
You're one of how many kids?
There's 9 of us. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. I'm the youngest boy and I have a younger sister.
Wow, that is busy. And mum and dad?
My mum is from Barbados and my dad's from St. Kitts. We were like a little community and everyone supported each other. We all went to this church called the Wesleyan Holiness Church in Birmingham. And that's where most people from the Caribbean, that was a place to meet, as well as, worship and sing. But my dad just worked a lot. My mum worked very, very hard too. She was a cleaner at a school. And my dad worked for British Rail his whole life.
So that work ethic really strong.
Strong.
What were the expectations for you, Phillip? Were there any?
I struggled. So I didn't realise that I was dyslexic, but I just knew that I was at school and I couldn't read or write. And then the only thing that I wanted to do was music. I used to love the music room. They had a piano in there, which made me, every time I seen a piano, I used to relax because the church had a piano and everywhere safe was a piano in my mind. So I saw this piano and I used to sit at the piano and write songs when all the kids had gone home. And I wrote this song after hearing about Ethiopia.
When must have been the 80s, no?
Yeah, it must have been, yeah. And I wrote this song. There are many people dying, crying, Ethiopia. And the headmaster came in and said, Phillip, who wrote that? Whose song is that? I said, oh, it's my song. He goes, you wrote that song? I said, yeah. He goes, I want you to sing that in assembly. So then I just remember going out on stage and the teacher saying, the headmaster saying, we're going to have a song by Phillip Browne, where everyone just thought that was hilarious. Because I was so nervous about not being able to spell. I used to stutter all the time. I couldn't get my words out because I was just so nervous. I started singing this song, Ethiopia, and then at the end of the song, everyone started cheering and clapping. And from that day, they kind of overlooked that I couldn't read or write. So I hid behind that a little. And I left school eventually with no qualifications whatsoever. When I stood at the school gates, I just thought I survived that. To me, it was just survival. And I thought, now, what am I going to do next? And I remember going out to work. And then I got fired from that job within 2 weeks. And my brother was head of security in a nightclub. And he says, come work for me doing security. I started doing the job and I started getting good at it. And then my brother said to me, it's students' night tonight. Have a look around. And I looked around and he says, you see all these students? And I said, yeah. How many stupid questions have they asked you tonight? I said, loads. He goes, right. Let's not be afraid of going to college. There's a college called Joseph Chamberlain College. Why don't you go back to college and do your GCSE maths and English? So I said, okay. And this college was at the end of my road. So I went off to college, signed up for basic maths and English. And then I saw all these cool kids going to the top floor. So I decided to follow them. And it was on the top floor and it was called the Performing Arts Department. They were doing A-level Performing Arts.
Yeah.
And this teacher called Beverly, she goes, in you go. So I sit down with all these kids. We start doing the lesson and I'm thinking, wow, this makes sense to me. This does. These kids are as weird as I am. This makes sense.
So you felt like you fitted?
I fitted a little bit in there. And then I said to her, look, I don't have any qualifications. I shouldn't have been in that class. She goes, yeah, I know. But I just wanted you to go in anyway and see what it was like.
Good for Beverly.
But you have to pass your GCSE English, or you won't be able to do this class. I said, well, it's going to be a tall order, but I'll give it a go. It was just a 2-year course. I loved it. And then this teacher just started watching me all the time, David Henson. He said to me, look, Philip, I really like the way you sing. I want to give you some singing lessons, private singing lessons. And I'm thinking, when? He goes, every Saturday morning. I believe in your voice. You have something really special. So we started having, he says, you're singing from your throat at the moment. I want you to sing from your diaphragm. I want you to use the whole voice. You're only using 5% of your voice. I didn't enjoy going. I just loved the fact that someone believed in me. And then David Henson said, you know what, Philip, I know you don't want this, but I have put you up to study opera at the University of Birmingham. I go into school and I hear this ringing in my ear. There's this doo in my right ear. It's going on for ages. It's going on for like 2 days. And then the third day I walk into school, I started to lose my balance. I started stepping on everyone, bumping into people. And I thought, this is really weird. So I go to the hospital. The doctor looks at me and he goes, we're going to have you stay in tonight. We're going to put you to sleep and we're going to see if we can save the other ear. And I'm saying, what?
Save the other
I said, what
ear?
do you mean, save the other ear? You are going deaf in your right ear. And I think you probably have about 4% left of hearing in that ear, but we don't want that infection to wipe out the other ear. So we'll keep her in tonight, and then hopefully we'll see what happens in the morning. And then this nurse, Mary Mills, she looked at me and she goes, I don't think you understand what he just said. When he says he's keeping you in tonight, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to wake up in the morning and you are going to be completely deaf in both ears and you'll have to learn sign language, or we'll save that good ear and you will only hear in your left ear.
19, and something's been put in front of you, which is people saying to you, Philip Browne, you thought you weren't good at anything and you are good at singing.
Yeah.
And there is a future here for you.
Yeah. And now this is all I got is that singing. And that's actually what I thought about. All I have is that singing. And I woke up in the morning, all my family was around the bed, and the doctor came over. They gave me a hearing test, and then they came back and they said, yes, we can confirm that you have no hearing in your right ear. It's completely gone. But you can hear in your left ear. He said, you can go home now. And that was it. And I said, hang on, doctor, will I be able to sing? And he went, no, you won't be able to sing anymore. You can forget about that. And then he just left. And then this nurse, same nurse, she grabbed my hand. I thought she was going to just shake my hand. She grabbed it and there was a little piece of paper in there. And she went, this is my phone number. I want you to call me if ever you need me, because this is serious business. And I put the little piece of paper in my pocket and I noticed that I really couldn't walk in. I couldn't walk properly because the fluid in my ear was all over the place. And my deaf ear was now making all this noise like you get between channels. It was like, and I'm like, I can't hear over this. It was my ear like trying to hear, but it couldn't hear. I couldn't even hear the sound of my own voice.
And you still can't hear from that ear?
And to this day, I've never heard anything in my ear, except for what's going on in my head, like the noises of the blood vessels. But I've never heard a noise out of my ear since that day.
What did it do to your dream or your ambition?
It crushed me. I was like, and the thing is exactly what you were saying. I was thinking, the only thing I was good at was singing, and it's been taken away. And I could just hear that doctor going, no, you'll never sing again. And I went home, and one of my favourite things was wearing headphones and listening to the music go from the left to the right. And I could see the cassette deck and everything there in my room that I used to listen to. And I stared at it. And then I just sat on the bed and was just in a daze for a long time. And then one day, I just thought, this is it. I'm going to make this work. And I used to tilt my head to the side all the time so I could hear what's going on. And I straightened my head and I went, I'm going to make this work. And I had a walking stick I used to use. I put it in the cupboard And I started trying to walk. I went out the house for the first time, and I remember walking up the street, and the cars all sounded different. The whole world sounded different and so loud in my good ear. And every day I went for a walk, and I went a bit further and a bit further. And then I thought, next move, we're going back to college. And then I left there, and I left home, got my own flat. And then a friend of mine told me about some auditions that were going for a show called Carmen Jones. Now, you've got Carmen the opera, and then you've got Carmen Jones, which is a musical theatre show.
Yeah, what's that? It's set in World War II, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Afro-Caribbean community.
Whole black cast.
A whole black cast, but based on the opera Carmen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Long story short, they offered me first understudy to the boxer Husky Miller, driving around Europe and doing these shows. While we were on the tour, I started to have real big trouble hearing the music. And within 3 weeks into the tour, they said to me, the lead guy, he's leaving, and you are going to take over as Husky Miller. And I said to the MD, I can barely hear the music. And I thought he was going to say, don't worry, we'll sort this out. And he looked at me and he went, can you do this job or not? Or do I have to find someone else? And I went, I can do it. And I went out on stage and I had to sing this song, stand up and fight until you hear the bell, stand toe to toe, treat blow for blow. And every night I'd do this song and my heart was just thumping because I could barely hear the music. And I was like trying to sing quietly so I can hear the music over my voice. And I thought, when this tour's over, I'm done.
So you'd given it a go, but you decide to walk away from performing, to go onto a scheme in London to become a bus driver. You end up living with a group of drivers posted at Putney Garage. That is a massive change. Tell us about it.
You have to drive this thing called a Route Master first.
Oh, I remember the Route Master, the one that used to jump on in the back.
Yeah, you jump on the back.
Old ones.
You've got a ticket. The reason why they put you on there is so you don't have to take any money. And you also have a conductor on the back, and he can tell you the route if you get lost. But the problem I had was I can only hear in my left ear, and the engine was right there on my left side. And every time I put my foot on the gas, it would blast my ears off. And I thought, I'm going to lose my hearing if I keep sitting next to this thing. They didn't want any hassle and said, okay, we'll put you on the 39. So I said, okay, fine.
Did you enjoy it? Did you think this is it for life?
I felt like I was playing a role. I didn't believe, if I'm honest, that I was really a bus driver. The thing that hit me is when I pulled up on my own bus at the bus stop, and this mother had her little child with her, and she put him on the bus and she went, bye, darling. And I looked at her and I wanted to say, are you serious? Do you know that I'm new here? And the kid sat down, and that's when I realised how much responsibility we have as bus drivers.
Huge, yes. What about your ambitions to sing? What about your love of singing? Did you give that up?
Well, my mission was to go to London to be a bus driver and then get into some kind of singing. But when I went out there and tried to get an agent, no one would touch me. And eventually I gave up because nobody would take me on. I was just going to work. I'd done a little bit of singing on a bus, come fly with me, let's fly, and they say, don't do your day job, Mr. Browne. They used to find it hilarious. And then one day I was walking home back, I finished my shift. I met a girl from the very first show that I did, Carmen Jones, years and years ago. And she says, I'm in London. Why don't you meet me in central London on your day off and we'll go for a coffee? So I meet her and she says, I'm in a musical called Mamma Mia. I said, wow, that's really great. She goes, have you seen Mamma Mia? I said, I've never seen a Western show in my life. I've never gone to musicals. I only saw that show that I was in years ago.
So the girl that you were meeting,
Nikki Shaw,
was a girl that you were in Carmen Jones with?
And she just said to me, well, it's hard out here. She goes, but I tell you what, they got open auditions for The Lion King soon. Why don't you go for that?
Had you heard about The Lion King?
Now, I heard about The Lion King, never seen The Lion King. And when I used to drive my bus around Piccadilly Circus, I used to see people going into the theatres and I used to go, I wonder what it's like in there. Where is everybody going? And it always looks like, when you're a bus driver, everyone looks like they're having a fantastic time. It's like they're living and you're just helping them live. I said, I'm going to go. No matter what day it is, I'll take a day off work, I'll be there. So off I go. And I'm thinking there's going to be 25, 30 people waiting to audition. I get to the Lyceum Theatre, and the lines of people waiting to audition for The Lion King is wrapped right round the building from stage door to stage door. This theatre seats 2,500 people. So I joined the line. I'm in the line for about 3 hours. I get there, finally, after 3 hours, walk into stage door. There's a huge theatre. And I'm like, wow, and a huge stage. And 4 judges sitting at the front, and they go, okay, Mr. Browne, go up on stage. What are you going to sing for us? And I said, some Nat King Cole. They said, have you got the music? And I went, oh, I haven't got any music. I'm going to sing a cappella. They went, okay, just go and sing verse and chorus with no music. So I go up on stage and I go, when I fall in love, it will be forever. And then I sing something else, and they look at me and they go, okay, come back next week. And this went on for 8 weeks.
8 weeks? How many auditions did you do?
So I had to do 8 auditions. The first one was an open audition with everyone, and then I started doing these private auditions. And they said, here's some music to learn, and here is some script to learn. And it's from Mufasa, King Mufasa. But I still don't know how big this musical is yet, because I've never seen it, but I just know it's huge. But I can't sing in the house because everyone's asleep. So what I used to do is I'd finish my shift about 11 o'clock.
At night?
11 o'clock at night. I'll get home, and I used to have a cassette deck, and I'd take that out to the park, and I'd try and sing this Mufasa song they gave me. But when I started singing, dogs will appear from all over the place.
Well, it's the middle of the night. You're taking your cassette recorder to a park in the middle of the night to sing lines from The Lion King.
Yeah. So I thought, where am I going to sing? I can't sing in the house. And I look across the street, and there's a cemetery. And I thought, it's going to be scary, but I want this. I just step a little bit inside, and I start doing the lines. Luxembourg, everything the light touches is our kingdom. And then I start singing the song, from the day we arrive on the planet. And then the next day I go back, I go a little bit further in, and then my confidence started getting bigger. And then I went in a little bit more. And then before I know it, I'm there going, Simba, remember who you are. In the cemetery.
To the grave.
To the graves.
To dead people.
And then I used to rehearse on the bus. And I'd be like, 70 pence, please. Luxembourg, everything that light touches is our kingdom. 70 pence, please. A king's time is ruler.
So you were still doing the buses?
I'm still doing the buses, auditioning.
Did your fellow bus drivers know what you were doing?
I ain't told nobody that I'm auditioning for The Lion King. I used to take my bus uniform off at McDonald's on the Strand. Then I'd go over to the Lyceum Theatre, go and audition, go back on the buses for Putney. And I used to think, if I don't get this job, I'm going to have to see The Lion King on my own bus.
But you still have an issue with your ear because you're deaf in your right ear.
I just decided I'm going to have to learn to work with this disability at any cost, because I really want to sing and I want to do this. And I just decided, if I don't talk about it ever again, it's not going to control me. So I never, ever spoke about my deafness to anybody. If I panic, my bad ear goes crazy. It makes a lot of noise. But if I'm calm, my ear is really quiet. And I just had to compose myself, let the pianist play, and I just had to make it work. And then eventually I had my final audition at the Lyceum Theatre. And when I get there, the 4 judges are gone, and there's 12 judges that have flown in from Disney to make the final decision. And I'm late because I had to take the bus back to the garage. And one of the judges went, hang on, Mr. Browne, this is the last audition for The Lion King. Why are you late? And up to that point, I hadn't told him I was a bus driver. And the little voice in my head was saying, just tell him you were doing a show called Bus Driving. So I look at them and I go, yeah, sorry about that. And then they said, okay, sing for us. I sing for them. I do the lines. And then they just went, thank you very much. There was no comeback next week, so I was really disappointed. I went back thinking, I think I'm done. I think that's it. I think it's over. Anyway, 2 days later, I'm in the garage. I'm just about to drive out of the garage and my phone rings. I answered the phone and I said, hello, Phillip. It's Disney. And I said, yes. They said, we're going to offer you the job in The Lion King. And I went, yes. Well, thank you very much. That was absolutely lovely. Thank you. I put the phone down. I drive out of Putney Garage onto Putney High Street. I drive my entire bus route till I get to my final destination, Clapham Junction. I pull the bus over, I take my time card out to fill it out, and I go, hang on, there's something wrong here. So I open the window and I said, excuse me, mate, what time is it? He said, it's 12 o'clock, mate. I said, how can it be 12 o'clock? I'm not supposed to be here till 2. And then I went, and turned round and realised I was so excited about getting into The Lion King, I forgot to pick up my passengers.
No.
And now I know that they weren't waving at me.
No. They were
But I thought they were waving at me. And I was like, yes, I know. I'm going to be in The Lion King. And then I rushed home and I told my dad. And I said, Dad, I've been offered a job in The Lion King. And my dad looked at me and he went, you mean to tell me you're going to give up a good job driving the buses to go into The Lion King? And I said, yes, Dad. You still have your bus driver's license? And I said, yes, Dad. And I said, well, make sure it don't expire.
There are so many things to say here. You have got this part as Mufasa?
Right, so I've got the part as first cover to King Mufasa. I remember going to work on the first day. There was a joy that I've never felt in any musical I've ever done since that day. And I walked in and they were just like, yeah, how you doing? Good to see you. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is real. And we all sat around in a circle. And I sat there and they gave us this huge book with the music score. And I remember sitting there for a little while. All I was thinking about is, I should be at work. And I thought, Phil, you got to let it go. And then they started singing the song. From the day we arrived. And my head was exploding. And the woman was there.
I'm there.
My hairs were standing on my... I was like, oh my Lord, this is like the movie. This is insane. And then finally, the day comes. I'm sitting there at home. Phone call comes in. Phillip, the guy who plays Mufasa, he's away for about 3 weeks. You're going to be taking the role of King Mufasa for 3 weeks.
And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is an astonishing part. I mean, first thing, you've got this amazing headdress.
Yeah.
So there's a real presence to the role.
Mufasa is the father of Simba, and he is the king of the Lion King. But one of the things all I was thinking about is I pray to God that I can hear the music. That was one thing that was always in the back of my head. The deafness never leaves you. And I was thinking, I can do this. And I put on all the uniform and I literally felt like the king. And I go downstairs and I have a wife called Sarabi. And everyone's going, you can do it, Phil. You can do it, Phil. And then I just remember being under the stage because Mufasa comes from under the stage and then it comes all the way up. And all this crew and everybody's on your side. And then they go. And then you hear the animals coming. And then she starts singing. From the day we arrived on the planet. And then the stage opens and the guy goes, go, Phil. And then you have to stand up and start walking up the stairs. And just as I took my first step, I lost my balance. And my wife just grabbed my hand. She goes, it's okay. It's okay. She looked at me in the eye because she does it every night. And she just gave me that look like, it's going to be fine. I calmed down and I started to walk up Pride Rock as Mufasa. And I thought, I'm going to own this. And I raised my head up. And I thought, I'm Mufasa. And then at the end of the song, it goes, in the circle of life. And then it goes, and everyone goes, yeah. And for me, it was like a flashback of the school gates, church, everything. All this stuff just started flashing. And I thought, I'm deaf. I'm dyslexic. And I heard that doctor going, you'll never sing again. And now I'm Mufasa. And then Sarabi goes, we got to move. Because you're supposed to turn around and run down the stairs. And I just thought, everyone's cheering for the show. But I was cheering, man, for the past. And now I'm going to the future as King Mufasa. And I remember walking on stage and doing my lines. And this time for real, Luxembourg. Everything that light touches is our kingdom. Oh, a king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I mean, I just feel you owning it, but so much more than the role. It is almost like you sort of got your life back. All these rejections, all the times where you didn't fit in, and here you are at the top of Pride Rock. When your friend Nikki Shaw said you should go and get a copy of The Stage, where all these adverts are for auditions, because there's an audition there for The Lion King. Did you realise at that moment what a life-changing moment it was going to be for you?
I didn't know. I don't know where I would have ended up, but it was just magical that she told me about that show. And you know what? I always felt like a bus driver. I still deep down feel like that bus driver, because that meant so much to me. And it certainly meant a lot to my dad. And my dad's not here anymore. And I remember just before he passed, I went and sat next to him, and he was in bed. And he said, "Phil, I want to tell you something. Even from heaven, I'm going to know if you don't have that bus driver's license." I said, "Dad, are you serious?" He goes, "I'm telling you, son, even from heaven, I'm going to know. And if you give it up, I'm coming back." Oh, man, I'm telling you.
And you've been in 10 West End musicals.
Oh, you know what? When I left The Lion King, I went into Showboat, Anything Goes, Porgy and Bess.
Do you still question yourself now?
I do. And to be honest, this is the first time I ever spoke. I've never spoken about being deaf in one ear in the entire 24 years I've been in musical theatre until this show today.
Because?
Because I always felt like I wouldn't get the job, or they're going to feel like I'm going to let them down because I'm not going to be able to hear the music. But it's only recently I decided to own it. And I think some of my friends will hear this story and be like, "No way. I've known Phil for years. There's no way he's deaf in one ear." But since I decided that I'm going to speak about it, the weight off my shoulder has been amazing. And Mary Mills, I just want to say this because I really want to mention it, because to me, Mary Mills was an angel.
And Mary was the nurse.
Mary's the nurse.
Who was speaking to you when you were in hospital, when you'd been told by the doctor that you'd never sing again.
Mary Mills came to see me. I got her a ticket to come and see me in The Lion King. Obviously, I treated her like gold. I brought her backstage and she was like, "Philip, you're doing this. Why don't you tell people that you can't hear? It might help other people." And I went, "I'm just not ready." But now, as Mufasa says, I remember who I am.
Phillip Browne, I can't wait to see what you do next. It has been such a joy spending time with you. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to Life Changing.
Thank you so much too. It's been a journey.